I want to start off with the obviously this is a script from Mike Gabino, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I'm aware he did a short film version of this as well. So I'm curious for both of you how this story in what iteration first came to you. If John, if you're happy to kick off with that.
Yeah, sure. So, I found this script on a website called Inktips, which freelance writers just upload their scripts in hopes that producers find it. And then from Inktips, I followed it to another site called Coverfly, and the logline just immediately got to me because I could relate to it as an editor. So I requested the script and I read it twice in a night, and that's when I knew that I wanted to do it because if the script holds me for 10 pages, I know I'm into it. And the script held me for all 100 pages that it was, and
Oh.
I pretty much soon reached out to the writer saying, "Hey, listen, I want this script. I want the rights to it. What do I need to do to get it from you?" And he goes, "Well, show me some of the work you've done." And I just released a feature film prior to Freelance
Mm.
that got released. So I said, "Look, this isn't my first rodeo. I've released a film before. Here's the style. Here's the genre that I do." And he liked it. He goes, "Well, the only issue is I'm making a short film version of it for festivals and stuff locally in New York. Can I give you the rights to the feature film and still maintain the short film rights?" I'm like, "You do whatever you need to do, short film, music clip, whatever you want to do with it. I just give me the feature film rights like right now because I want this script." And it was very quick. He signed it over like the next day, and then we just went from there. But I knew I had to have it, basically.
And then how did it come to you, Nicole? What iteration did you first see freelance in?
Yeah, I mean, we have a mutual friend, Adam Larosa, who was one of the producers on the film as well. And I think Adam reached out to me saying that he had a director who was really interested in meeting with me and wanted to send me a script. And I was just, I really trust Adam. I was like, yeah, please, connect us. And from John's email, I read the script in the quickest one sitting. Like John said, it was just a
Yeah,
really
it's a
easy
page turner. It's a
read.
page
It's a
turner.
page turner. It was
Yeah,
so brilliant. And so straight away we were like, I just wanted to chat to John about it because it hit different elements for me too. She was everyone, I'm sure has had to do, some form of like casual freelance work or, this and that. And it kind of it hit a few kind of spots for me because I was like, yeah, I get her. I understand this.
yeah.
So it's just, yeah, I just wanted to chat about it. And yeah, that's kind of how it came about.
What is it about? Because I think that's one of the reasons the movie is so intriguing is because it is a grounded character and a grounded story, but it's told through this horror lens. Ultimately, this very thriller based lens. What is it for you both about horror and thrillers that is such an interesting vehicle to explore much more grounded themes? Is there something about horror that we just attach to as humans more to tell these human stories? Do you think? That's for
Um,
either. Yeah, yeah.
well, I mean, look, I was never interested in horror. Like, I never considered myself a horror director. Horror movies was actually the last thing that I ever thought I'd end up doing.
Wow.
I'm not too big of a fan of the genre. I'm not up to date with horror films and stuff like that, especially those, the gore fest ones. I don't watch that kind of stuff. But
Mm,
what I've noticed is lately from Neon and studios like A24,
mm.
there's been a lot of horror that's intellectual horror, that
Sure.
makes you think, that it's like artistic intellectual horror
Yeah.
that makes you think, I guess, more less about the slasher kind of stuff, but more about how it can relate to the everyday person. So you got films like Hereditary that deal with like, or Heretic and stuff like that that deal with like mental illness and stuff like that. Um, I enjoy those more because they tend to be thriller hybrids. I'm more of a thriller person. Like my film previous to this, Rage, that was a thriller.
Mm.
I feel pretty comfortable in the thriller scope landscape, and within the scope of it. But I didn't see any reason why we can't sprinkle some horror
Mm.
into this film as well, because she is losing her mind, half the time. So this was really my foot into horror. Because it's like comedy to me. It's really hard to do right. Yeah, but again, Nicole and I had that discussion early on, like, hey, listen, this isn't quite a horror. It's kind of a thriller, psychological thriller, so it's a bit of a hybrid.
Mm.
And I'm like, I told Nicole, and I think you'll agree, Nick, like, there's plenty of like mixture here that we're gonna have to like navigate. But yeah, I think we I think we pulled it off. So yeah,
There was just so much in this script. You've got
yeah.
there's a bit of sarcasm, there is drama, there is horror, there is thriller, and I think that's what kind of, yeah, keeps it grounded. Also keeps it relatable too. And, it's things like what you don't see and, what you don't hear. And I think that's scary, human psyche, and, delving into that. And I mean, like, I'm a fan of horror thrillers. I've seen everything. I'm so immune to it. It's funny. People go to the cinema with me and I don't even jump. So
Yeah.
a bit weird.
No, you and me
But
both. I'm a big horror
it's my
fan.
favorite
I
genre.
get it.
But
And
anything can be
making this
horror.
kind of genre. Oh, exactly, yeah. And making
Like
this
you and I
genre
spoke about it.
is
You and I spoke about it in depth. It was like,
mm,
well, to take, I think you told me a story of about you going to the cinema or something I remember you telling me a story about like something scared you, Nick, and I'm like, well, that's not really a horror thing, but like anything in life can be
mm,
horror, if you
mm,
put it into the
Mm.
right context. And Nick, you and I spoke a lot about what scares us, what our deepest fears are, and stuff like that. So you took a lot of that into the character as well.
mm,
So
mm,
yeah, I
mm,
was very intrigued, and like it was something that someone finds scary, another person might laugh at, so it's a very fine
mm,
balance. But
mm.
I wasn't aware at the time that Nick was so into it.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
that came out later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's a fun genre to make because there's no boundaries, so you can kind of go and just push it as far as you can.
It's incredible. And I think because Freelance is a very, especially visually immersive film, the way that the digital world is captured on camera is absolutely incredible. This is a big wild guess. I have to assume there was some David Fincher inspiration for the opening
Yeah,
credits, right?
yes,
Yeah. As
yes,
soon
yes.
as I watched that, I was like, that is Fincher. But the way you immerse us into that, I'm curious to know sort of how, firstly, John, how you pulled that off as a director, because it's probably some of the best digital work I've seen on film. But
Oh, thank
also
you.
for you, Nicole, how things like staring directly into a camera that you know is a computer screen, or the way the camera is interacting with you as an actress, how does that sort of inform decisions you make about the character? So it's, sorry, two questions there, but John, yeah, how did you pull up that digital
No,
stuff,
you're
and how does that affect you
Okay.
as an actor?
Well, like you said, David Fincher is like huge inspiration. I mean, I think number one, I think he's one of my like all-time greatest favorite director. I grew up in the 90s, so I grew up with his films, a lot of it. I mean, I shouldn't have been watching his films in the 90s. I wasn't old enough, but he had such an impact on me. He still does to this day.
Mm,
Um, Down to the color palette, um, using the we couldn't afford CG, so we just got like a micro lens and we're like stick it into the computer, stick it into the keyboard, stick it in as close as we can. We've got that long tele lens that you screw in, and that kind of stuff I really wanted to explore because I've never had the opportunity to do so.
mm.
But if you're referring to like the opening credits, my motto was like, what can we do that David Fincher could do if he had $6,
Love
and I
that.
thought like, well, the whole film's about editing. I'm like, let's be so meta with it if we can, and just, really give the audience a flavor of where it is, because ultimately the computer's the bad guy in the film as much,
Sure.
that's the evil entity within the film that Katie has to contend with. So I thought let's introduce it off the bat. Let's give it some really cool music. I had my brother in Las Vegas doing music for it and stuff. So um, yeah, I just figured, all right, this is my chance to do like a really really cool Fincher-esque opening with the resources that I have. And a lot of people have come up to me and said how cool it is.
It's awesome. And how
Yeah.
does that, so then that immersive style of filmmaking, Nicole, how does that affect your
Mm.
performance? How does that affect your relationship, I guess, with the camera as an actor?
It's a lot more challenging
Sure. Yeah.
than working off, a human being. But I mean, I love a challenge, and I know some of the scenes, particularly because they were just action driven, so they were like looking at this and then having to do some of the keyboard stuff, and there might be like a few words here and there, and I wasn't too worried about dialogue with that because I think it was just kind of, I mean, unless there's more as well. But I remember, I mean, some of the scenes, John, you were standing right next to the camera. And I think I was like, look, just if there's any words or if you want me to just throw them out. And I just tried to stay in character. And I think with some of the some of the scenes that did become a bit more emotional. Um, I guess, yeah, internally there's so many things that I'm thinking about to kind of get me to that space. Just, personal things that I think I just draw upon. But yeah, I don't know if that answers the
No,
question.
no, it absolutely does, and it kind of leads perfectly into what I wanted to talk about next was Katie's costume and haircut as well, because she has a very specific haircut. That's very much her character and the way she dresses. I'm curious to know what that collaboration was like between you both in talking about how we were presenting Katie on screen and sort of how that final look came up and what that says about her as a character as well.
I love chatting about costume and
Yeah.
hairstyles, and I love that. But John, I mean, you originally had a few ideas of hairstyles
Yeah.
that you sent to me, and then we kind of just went back with a few things. But
Yeah.
I mean, one of the first things was like, would you shave your hair or do an undercut?
Yeah.
I think that was like one of the first kind of questions.
It wasn't really a request. I'm like, hey, you have to do it because
No,
I want.
no,
I
no.
was really
I did
inspired
have a
by
choice.
I was inspired by obviously Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Go with the dragon tattoo.
Sure.
With it, I didn't want her to go so grungy with it, so it was kind of like I guess a hybrid between
Mm,
someone who's got her own style, but also someone who doesn't really give a shit about what other people think of her.
mm,
And I think it was so wonderful to see because Nicole will come on set and she's all chirpy and lovely in person, like she's all bubbly. Hey, how you going? This and that. As soon as that costume went on her and the hair got transformed, like she switched into character so easily. And I think the wardrobe helped, the hair and makeup helped you a lot, even down to the jewelry that she wore. We had
mm.
extensive
It
discussions
really
about that. Yeah,
changes. It really changes you. I mean, for me personally, I throw on clothes, and I mean, I feel a certain way wearing a hat and jewelry, and
Mm.
then having an undercut and dressed the way I was, and yeah, like you said, John, like down to the jewelry. It you just feel. I just felt a certain way. I felt like Katie. And part of it was a little bit of me as well. So I felt comfortable. And I guess that's, I tried to really give the most authentic performance because I felt like her. Mm.
I feel like it just works in tandem with the immersive filmmaking style when you're having a character who feels so fully realized. Those two aspects work incredibly well together. And I know we spoke briefly already about how there are horror and thriller elements of the film, and there are some genuinely great scenes of tension, and there are some decent jump scares in here as well. Even as a seasoned horror fan as myself, still scared the shit out of me. So congratulations on that. But I'm just curious to
Right.
know, especially from the point of view of Nicole, you're saying you love horror films, and John, not as much up to date with it. I'm curious to know where you both stand on the build up to a jump scare versus the jump scare itself. What do you feel like either is maybe more important, or what do you feel like sort of gets under your skin more? Is it that tension build up, or is it the final jump scare release?
I think for me, it's that build up
Mm.
yeah,
and or feeling. I mean, I always, films are very predictable for me. So
Yes,
I
right,
do
yeah.
like when something does build up and then it just doesn't go the way you kind of thought it would be. I don't know. I like the tension build up beforehand. Yeah, that's kind of unsettling.
I mean, for me on set, it wasn't something that I was actively thinking about, to be honest with you. Like, oh, this is the
Mm,
jump scare. Um,
mm,
we had such a good blueprint, which was the script, and
Mhm.
everything was in the script. Down to every piece of material that was filmed was in the script. Like
Wow.
we followed that script 100%. So it wasn't it wasn't like it's going to be a surprise for us if there's a jump scare here or there's it's like
mm,
in the script it says, hey, hands come out and they grab blah 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 blah. So
mm,
I was like, all right, how can we shoot this in a way that doesn't give it away until the very last moment, but
Mm.
also drags out that tension. Um, and then it ultimately ended up becoming horror.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
because of the tension that was built through the thriller aspect of it,
Mm.
if you will. So yeah, I wasn't intentionally going out to, put a jump scare here, put a jump scare there. The
Yeah, yeah.
script already had that there for me to work
mm,
with, so it was a very descriptive part of it, even down to the part with the bed. It's like, no, no, the sheets are getting tighter on her. I'm like, all right, how do we do this physically? I'm not trying to add anything more to it because the script was
mm.
so good.
It was already there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
Mm.
fascinating. I'm curious to know now. This is just sort of in my head talking about sort of your relationship with horror, John. What was it like filming the snuff film scenes? Because they're pretty fucked up, and they have to be for the film, right? That's the whole point of this. But
Um,
what was that
yeah,
experience like?
yeah. That was shot, I think, a couple of months before we actually started principal photography. So
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, because we had to have that stuff on screen
Sure. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
for Nicole to react to. Um, I, I called in a lot of favors from friends. Like, hey, dude, I can't offer you a big role, but can you come in and like get shot in a camping tent or something like, it was me just trying to be like, all right, again, comes down to the script. The script says there's someone doing that, there's someone doing this. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna read it, blah blah blah. I added a little bit to it, but I guess
Mm,
in terms of filming it, I overshot it as much as I could.
sure.
Um, in terms of from the point of view of someone shooting it, I did have to keep two things in mind. Number one is I couldn't make it in the tradition of grainy footage that was shot on a video camera that was because everyone's got iPhones now and,
That
and,
real
and
eight
mobile.
millimeter style of
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
I wanted to keep
Mm.
away from that. I wanted to keep it digital because nobody would shoot on a camcorder now.
Yeah.
Like people
Yeah.
have cell phones and stuff like that now. So that was one of the other thing. The other thing I wanted to keep was that whoever's shooting it knows is going to end up online. So that would hide their identity quite well. So no reflections, no shadows, nothing to give them away.
True.
Um, so that was just the other thing. In post, I didn't put any grade on it. I didn't put any scan lines or any filters away. I just kept it as if we were shooting it on our phone.
Mm.
Um, so that was a big thing for me to think about. In terms of shooting it, we had one day to shoot all the snuff stuff because
Wow.
of just schedule limitations. So we shot like maybe five snuff films in one go, and it was just that stuff was more limiting than actually doing the whole feature film because
Right.
we had safety to think about with the hanging scene. We had safety to think about with the plastic bag. We had safety to
Sure.
think about using a bleach bottle to actually bleach someone. It's like, no, that shit has to be cleaned out completely because we'll burn
Yeah.
the actor's face. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of safety there because I think the snuff films are the most dangerous part of the film that we shot.
Sure.
So yeah, it was just a lot of safety issues and going, all right, how can we do this in a safe way but not compromise on what the script says?
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. I just hung out with my mates all day and just had a good laugh. But I made sure to shoot as much as I could, but then in the
Mm.
film when I was editing it, not show it. Um,
Right.
give little taste of it because the audience's mind is always going to be a lot more messed up than what I could ever possibly give you on screen. You know?
What was it like then seeing that footage by someone who is a horror fan, but seeing it in that sort of raw, visceral way John was talking about? Was how was that reaction, and especially reacting into it in character as Katie?
I was just thinking about that as you both were speaking, because for me, yeah, I was watching it for the first time that first take,
Mm.
so my reactions were really, really fresh, really
Yeah.
new. Um, I yeah, it just gave it that extra authenticity because I was just seeing it for the first time,
Mm.
which was really cool. And even with I know when we were shooting that first opening with the porno
Mm.
scenes, I was like, John, get this on screen. Like I want to. That's fine. Like I will watch real porn. It's all good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I can react naturally from it. So yeah, it was a fun shoot. It really was.
It was fun, wasn't it? It was good.
I hear that quite often whenever I talk to horror filmmakers. Despite what crazy shit you see on screen, everyone's like, "We had a great time making it."
Yeah.
As a fan of horror, that makes me so happy.
Mm.
I'll
Yeah, we did.
I'll close out on this because I'm taking up too much of you guys' time. But so thank you so much again. But one of my favorite lines in the film, and I laughed so loud, is when Katie's when she's talking to the guy and he goes, "I'm a cinephile," and Katie goes, "Oh, you like to fuck movies," and I
Yeah.
laughed my ass off. But it did make me think what sort of your in I guess a less intimate way your relationship with movies has sort of inspired both of your journeys as creative artists. Was there a turning point for either of you in your film loving journey that sort of started this path down to where we are now?
Nick.
Oh, that's difficult. I grew up watching films. It started with a lot of musical theatre films as well because I grew up as a dancer, and but I do, and I still to this day I watch a lot of old classics or old films. Vincent Price, Alfred Hitchcock, Steve Martin, Gene Wilder. Like I love all the old school movies.
Mm,
But yeah, there was no defining like
sure.
film for me. I think it was just I just have a love of great performances and great films, and yeah, that's really hard to kind of
Mhm.
narrow down to a
Sure.
couple.
I think for me, it was growing up in Budapest, Hungary, when I was 6. I think the first film that had such a profound impact on me because I rewatched it 20 times a day was American Ninja, um, Canon
Love
films,
that movie. Yeah.
Sam Furstenberg. So that introduced me to movies. But I think when I
Yeah.
started to take films seriously was the first time I saw the movie Seven Samurai. That showed me. I'm like, nah, this is an art form. You can take it seriously.
Mm,
And I rewatch that once a year because I'm like, this is my favorite film of all time. It's just you can't beat it. So that film showed me that you can do things
mm,
and have an impact. And then obviously the work of Fincher, Kubrick. I'm a massive fan of Kubrick. David Fincher, Kubrick. I guess I lean more towards the darker side of life because I find that a bit more interesting.
sure.
So directors that explore that have influenced me. But if I was to say my top three films that influenced me is Seven Samurai, Fight Club, and Clockwork Orange.
That's awesome. It's a crime for any cinephile, but I only saw Seven Samurai for the first time a couple of months ago, and that is an
Oh,
incredible film that I absolutely loved it. So
yeah,
I can see why it's so influential.
yeah.
Nicole, John, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to chat again. I appreciate you being so flexible with it. Like I said, I really,
Thank you
really
so
enjoyed the
much.
film, and I
Nice.
appreciate you guys taking the time to chat. And I hope we get to do it again for whatever's coming up next.
Thank
Hopefully.
you. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Talk to you both soon.